Okay, guys, I just did my dream hack, which was to get all of the enemies um, to act like the cakes. I call these guys cakes, and that is to when you run into a cake, you here. Let me just demonstrate it. Let me see if I can demonstrate it. Oh, I reset it. That's good. I got save states. So you see how it's cycling through, and then you can hit A, and you can get a random power up. So that's how that works. Um, so let me stop that. It's going really slow if you're wondering because it's BSNES debugger, old version. But I actually found a way. I had a very picky outcome that I wanted. I wanted all the characters to look as they do already, but I wanted them to give like that cake style random effect, like random power up cycle thing. Um, so let me talk about one of the alternatives that I could have done, but it wouldn't have been exactly what I wanted. There is the Kirby's Dream Course like editor, level editor or something like that. So here we'll take a screenshot. There's like a Kirby's Dream Course level editor. The only thing that I doubted it would be capable of, I honestly didn't even mess with it at all. But I figured, okay, yeah, I mean maybe I can modify all the existing levels and put all the cakes where the other enemies used to be. The only problem is I didn't want there to be like a zillion cakes everywhere. I wanted all the enemies to still look like themselves because it gives you that still like fresh variety look instead of just cakes every freaking place. So to satisfy that desire, I had to go and figure out in the assembly like what is the logic for the game to identify what if a thing's a cake and to do that like cycle thing. And if you watched my previous video on this like side quest thing, I figured out how to like force the UFO power up, but that's incredibly different thing than actually getting the cycle thing to happen. Um, that's like one single RAM right versus an actual like change in the entire way the game functions. So at first it was really intimidating. I had to literally invest like a week of my effort. Just even though I took it only an hour after I invested that effort, but big investment. And then I finally figured it out, and now I'm just gonna go and use the rest of this video to walk walk you through it. So I had a lot of things going through my mind at first, like just total FUCK in the head of what is the best way to approach this problem. And I'm gonna skip all of my mishaps, my mistakes, to just finally where I figured out what would probably be the best way to go about this. And it's obviously like a lot of experimentation, and there was potential that the route I decided to take could have failed, but it definitely was a great start, and it ended up being the entire thing that I needed to do. And what I'm talking about is I decided to do a breakpoint that I had found from my first part on this RAM. And what happened was, and I detailed it pretty in full in the first video, is that when you break on a write on this RAM address, it'll just continuously break every single frame after you take a shot. So let me just demonstrate that. First I got to restore the breakpoint to where I can take a shot. Now I'm going to take the shot. So there it is, it just broke, and then every time you run every frame it'll just keep breaking. So what I realized I could do, and what is that, like what I realized from experience was that when I hit the object, a RAM write to this address occurs from a different ROM address, and we can explore that right now. I always do another save state right before I'm about to hit the cake. So I'm going to load it right now, and we're going to run. So now you see, I just hit it once. What I would do is I would count how many times it'll take for me to hit run before the ROM address changes. So that was 1, and then I do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that took me 14, and you see the ROM address changed. Um, and that what that tells me, at least from experience, from my last part, is that I know that I am now in the code that is going to determine the power up, and more importantly, what I learned from studying this cake thing is that this address is a special like cake themed address that's responsible for changing the power up RAM address. Um, if we look at the full disassembly, where is it? Um, the reason why this is completely different, what I call a cake themed power up thing, is because it increments the power up every time the frame rate goes and goes. I mean, every time a new frame advances. I'm not good with my words sometimes, but so that's how that works. And the reason why I wanted to find the frame before and the frame after we entered this cake themed thing is so I could do the same thing for when I hit a non-cake enemy, and then hope that I could keep everything else controlled so that the only differences in the trace would be the difference of the cake. Like I was looking for a branch in logic to like this cake thing. So this is going to be another one of those complete walkthroughs where I'm just going to do everything I just said. But I am feeling a little lazy, so I might just kind of sum it up. So basically, I counted 13, 14. I would write it down in a file like notes2.txt. See if here I wrote 14, 15. I must have did it wrong. So I'll redo it. I'll load the save state. I'll hit it 14 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now at this point, I'm going to check the trace as CPU opcodes. I'm not going to actually do it because I already have a file, but I'll just pretend I hit it. I'm going to run it. We just ran whatever sort of code was necessary to get into the cake type shit, and then I'm going to decheck the trace CPU opcodes. I'm going to go to my OS X drive. I'm going to grab that trace log. And like I said, I've already done all this. And then I put it in my little cake directory. And I've already done it. See, this cake log was actually bad. So I do want to throw out there some problems that I experienced. You see right now, this is a ground shot. See, the first time I tried this, I tried it on a cake when I was doing an aerial shot. Let's see, it's probably like this one. No. Let me take my breakpoint off. 4-hit cake. Yeah, right there. So you see how I was coming in from the air. So I originally did what I just told you, which was I did the trace before and after I hit the cake and went into the cake themed power up selection type code. But there was a problem with that. We'll get into the problem very shortly. The second thing I did is I wanted to hit a regular enemy, so that would be like this one. See, I hit a regular enemy. Notice that I hit him on the ground. So at that point, I had these two traces where I was pretty much certain that there was very few differences. So I saved one of the traces to this Twitter log. It's supposed to be Twister because I hit the Twister enemy. And I'm not gonna really go. I'll try to go through this part. Why not? So let me undo all the changes I made. Undo all the changes I did to this one. But basically what happened was when I did the aerial shot on the cake, there was some change in logic that had nothing to do with the actual cake selection. It had to do with the ball being in the air. So what I did is I went back and I found a cake on the ground that I could hit with a ground shot. and that solved that. So after that, I loaded up these 2 logs in a file, turned word wrapping off because with the word wrap on, it's just ugly as see that you can't really look at it nice. So I turn the word wrap off, and then I can just have these lines completely symmetrical or in alignment with each other, and I can just scroll down. It'd be cool if I could scroll both at the same time, but I don't know how to do that. I wonder if I could figure it out. No, I can't think of I'm trying like shift and all these things, but nothing to scroll them both. That should be an added feature. That'd be really cool. Maybe I can hit up Sublime for scroll all columns feature. But anyways, so what I would do is I would just look at the ROM offsets, just scroll down and take a look, maybe line by line, use my eyes. So for instance, I would just find where I could go through. I would get to a certain line. I'm not really doing it right now. I'm too lazy. I just did it. And then I would say, okay, everything's the same until this line. So I would go down to, here. And there were a few cases where there was a change in the logic that just didn't look like the change in logic didn't seem to me to be the change that was required. That's just an intuition thing. So what I would do is I would find where it was usually a subroutine call. I'm just too lazy to do it, but there would be like a subroutine call, and one of these files would be different. So I'd wait until it returned, and then just thankfully they returned, and then these 2 files would eventually be realigned if I would just delete the subroutine that was called from. And eventually I just got down to the end, and it actually happened to be to the very end of the twister. There's a thing that compares. It's actually, I just totally skipped everything that I was going to teach. And you see here we do this compare to B, and then if it's not equal, we go to A67. Well, if we take a look at this address in the cake, you see that we would branch A67. So in the twister case, we did branch to A67, but in this case, we didn't. And this ended up being the magic, because then I would go in and modify the hex to actually automatically load in the value B here and not branch ever. And that was what I needed. And I took my time to plan out how I would do that. I noticed that this started on the address F and it ended on 3. So I did F0, 1, 2, 3. There was 5 bytes I had to fill. I need 3 from my load A, which is A90B00. So then the last 2 can just be knobs. Once I had this, I could overwrite the actual ROM file, and I've already demonstrated how I get these addresses in the ROM address. I just use BSNES. It's an easy way for me to do it. I demonstrated this in part 1. I would just go here, type in the address, copy the whole column, and then just do a search in the ROM like so, which it won't show up because this is the hacked version. But if I undo my hacks, there it is. Then I'll redo the hack. There it is. Those are the values going in. And then we have the cake hack. So now I'm going to demonstrate the cake hack, which I wish I demonstrated at the beginning. But all I do is open up my ROM. I'm going to do a 2-player game because it's fast. Let's just do a simple level. Oh, look at that, it's high. Figures. So I didn't actually configure the controls for layer 2. So I'm just going to do a random shot and hope I hit something. Oh, not going to hit anything. Alright, so I'll hit the guy this time. Oh my god. What happened? Didn't work. I'm so confused right now. Hold on. this moment. What? I'm really confused. What? Okay, let me try it on the level that I tested. Figures player one, player two. Okay, let's see what happens this time. There it goes. Oh, alright, so isn't that something? The other level didn't work. I wonder why. Now I'm gonna have to go investigate into that. But we can just mess around with this level for now. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's not working for regular enemies. Oh! So now, like, a whole new test case needs to come in on regular enemies. Gee, what the heck am I gonna do? I think I know what to do. I want to do this live? Let's do it. Just want to redo all the changes I did. Okay, let's see if I can do this live. So I think on this load A, I just have an intuition thing where I think, you know, there's a few logic calls, but I think one of these is to say, is the enemy just a normal enemy, a non-power-up enemy? And we want this game to think that all the enemies are power-up enemies. So what I'm thinking about trying is modifying the ROM such that let's see. First of all, what we want to do is we want to break at this address. When we hit a regular enemy, just take a look at what everything's doing in that moment. So if I go here, I want to do a breakpoint. And let's just see what happens. Let's hit this guy. Now this is an aerial shot, but I don't think it'll be a big deal. Okay, here we go. There's the break. Great, I'm glad we broke. Now at this point, that's a regular enemy. We see we have E in the accumulator. If we're 2, we're going to do some other stuff, but we know that we're not 2, so that's good to know. Now, let's see what happens. We're going to step through. Oh, he was 2. So 2, that's the key. He was 2, and then we went to A4F. Wait a second. Oh, so that's actually what happens in the Twister case as well. I wonder if that's what happens in this guy's case. Let's go. I have to find this code. Load A531C. Whoops. A5F. So in both cases we go to A5F. Let's see what happens in this guy's case. Ah, see that? It's a non-equal value. My intuition was totally correct. So what we need to do is we need to make this a branch. we need to load it. That's fine, we can load it, but let's make this a branch, which is the opcode 80. So I'm gonna do some translation right now. Let's just see if we can find the whole thing. I don't know if we will, since there is some ROM hackage going on. Yeah, we didn't find the whole thing. Let me see if I can find half of it. How about this much? Yeah, that was the right location. So I'm going to basically take this and make it a branch always with the 80 opcode, which is for branch. And I'm going to make sure, since I've just learned this stuff, that that is the branch always opcode. It is 80 right there. So now I think we've just completed the hack for reals. And we're going to rerun this thing in SNES 9X on the first level, which I have just showed you that failed, and hopefully we're going to see it succeed in this case. Hopefully I get the first row. Oh, I missed it again. In that case, I think I'm going to give this guy the ability to move. If I haven't already. Yeah, so let me just do the controls for this guy. That's good enough. Yeah, the right key is working. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the dude. It works. Yes. Let's play one more level after this. I want a level with more enemies. Let's get a level with more enemies, huh? So this I cannot wait to play with my good friend Electro Dude. But let's do it. Now this is gonna work. I'm so pumped. I'm just gonna play through this level and just demonstrate what the hack does, just even further. Let's see if I can make some cool shots while I'm at it. Oh, I can't. I gotta set the controls. That's good. Let's see if I can do this. I think that'll be good. Let's see if I can make a shot. Oh, I don't know about this one. Oh no! Oh, he survived. Can't do it with this laggy freaking thing. But anyways. Cool. So cool. Oh god. Saved by the rock. is laggy and crap, but I'm too excited about the hack to actually like stop. I want to get to that guy. Oh no 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 no! This is so frustrating playing this lag and shit. Why am I doing this? Stop! Oh my god, I'm gonna get it. Oh, got it! Just barely. The whole idea is, can I get it? Can I make it? Let's try it. I blame it all on the lag. I'm still too happy to stop though. I'm not gonna make that. I'll keep trying. Oh, so close! Alright, I'm not gonna play anymore. This is too laggy, but that's my hack, and goddamn that fucking lag.